What do you reckon happens when a country cannot protect its own borders? Parts of the United States are burning tonight simply because the president wants to remove people who arrived in the country illegally. President Donald Trump has deployed 2,000 members of the National Guard to Los Angeles to quell violent protests after 2 days of clashes between demonstrators and riot police. And if you're watching on television, you can see some of the action now. People who support criminality converged on a federal immigration facility that the local mayor said was being used by agents who conducted workplace raids. The raids have been targeting mostly Latino areas of the city, sparking protesters to wave Mexican flags on the streets as they burn down cars and buildings. Donald Trump, of course, has been called a wannabe dictator and an authoritarian, but the truth is he's kicking out illegal criminals, criminals being the correct definition because they broke into the United States illegally. He's doing exactly what he said he'd do during the election campaign.
I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion.
Well, he's sticking to his word, isn't he? Because more than 120 arrests of illegals have been made across LA in recent days in what the far-left governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has described for some reason as cruel. I'm not sure how deporting illegal criminals is cruel, but that's the radical left for you. Vice President J.D. Vance summed up the riots eloquently. He said insurrectionists carrying foreign flags are attacking immigration enforcement officers, while one half of America's political leadership has decided that border enforcement is evil. Time to pass President Trump's beautiful bill and further secure the border. And just to add to that, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, a character in his own right, also nailed it, adding, "Deport the invaders or surrender to insurrection. These are the choices." What's clear now is that all across the West, sovereign nations are fed up of the invasion of their borders. I don't think these scenes will be confined to the United States. If and when a British government commits to mass deportations too, just like America, you can bet your bottom dollar they won't be going home without a fight. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel now. The political commentator Chloe Dobbs, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell, and the businessman and activist Adam Brooks. Chloe, good evening. Indeed, good evening to all your panel. What do you make of these scenes in the US, and is it a warning sign for Britain and the rest of the West?
I think it definitely is a warning sign for Britain. I mean, we already saw some rioting happen last summer. I saw some shocking videos from what's going on in Ireland just over the weekend. Lots of riots and chaos happening there with regards to immigration. I mean, in this case, this is people in favour of illegal migration rioting on the streets, which just goes to show it's not just far-right thugs that get up to that sort of nonsense.
Good point.
And I think good on Trump for showing, you know, we're in charge now. You're not going to get away with this kind of nonsense on the streets, and really showing Gavin Newsom, sorry, I am the President of the United States. Illegal migration is not something we're going to tolerate, nor people rioting in favour of it. Yeah, and these are live pictures now. If you're watching on television at home, my audience, these are live pictures from Los Angeles right now. Riot police, I think, that we can see on Vision now, but also the National Guard have been deployed, as mentioned as well. Adam, what do you make of all this? Do you take sort of pride and courage to see a president of the West or a leader in the West deal with this problem?
He said what he was going to do before the election, and that is what he's doing. You can't argue that. Now, let's also remember that I think 42% of the Latino population in America voted for Trump. There's many honest, hard-working Latinos that do not want people going to America illegally and taking their jobs and putting their family at risk. It's the same here with people coming across the channel. We don't know their histories, and you know it is putting the public in danger in many instances. At the end of the day, Antifa are one of the most they should be a terrorist group because, look, they mask up. I've dealt with Antifa in London. They're vile people that pretend they're on the good side, but they're not. They're evil. They targeted my business when I confronted them. They're violent. They will be whipping this up here, and it won't be mostly Latinos. It'll be the far left. The far left seem to want to side on the side of criminals and not patriots or people that love their country.
Adam, be careful because you might get put on a prevent watch list for that kind of rhetoric.
Or called far right again by Bill.
I'm interested to hear that you can call someone far left, but you can't call them far right.
Well, people that mask up and cause violence are far left.
Take your joke, Adam.
Okay.
Bill, is it cruel, as per Gavin Newsom, to deport illegal migrants?
No, it's not. And if you've got no asylum status or failed asylum status, then you should be removed from the country. And I support legal action to do that. What concerns me, however, is that this is performative conflict by the Trump administration. He's got a track record on this. Back in 2019, he was going to target 2,000 illegal immigrants. Actually, only 35 were removed from the country. It's not clear what the legal basis for this action is, and there is evidence that it's not just targeting illegal immigrants, that actually people who are just protesting or American citizens are being locked up as well. And there's also...
But I think if you go down burning cars down and buildings and so on, then you deserve to be locked up, no?
Yeah, but there's evidence that people who've not been doing that have been locked up. And the courts and the legal process needs to run its course. But also, there is not a read across from here to the United States. There's a world of difference. Researching this afternoon, I discovered there's something called sanctuary cities in the US, which means that those cities effectively do not cooperate with the federal immigration authorities. There's nothing remotely like that within this country. So I think an automatic read across is not.
Well, do you know who organises those sanctuary cities? It's the Soros-funded DAs, the district attorneys, and all the Democrat activists who have quite literally taken the law onto their own hands. They ignore the federal laws and instructions, and they just do what they want, and they go after their enemies and their adversaries using the lawfare and whatever else, and they do what the hell they want.
You shouldn't be able to disapply from the federal government regulations. But the other point is, this is the first time in over 60 years that the National Guard has been brought in without the support of the local governor. And if you're going to have cohesive legal processes, I don't think that's a good move.
Adam?
No, I was just going to say, Bill said there's many Americans that are caught up in these protests amongst the violence, yet last summer there were peaceful protesters amongst the so-called rioters in the summer, and the left seemed to want everyone locked up that was involved in the protests and so-called riots there. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on.
Well, judges even said during Southport last summer, judges said if you were simply observing on the sidelines, if you were just there not doing anything, if you were just standing on the sidelines observing, you would be getting...
and you were involved. But in this case, Bill doesn't seem to think these people were involved.
I think the law should apply. And my real concern about this is it's performative, it's deliberately trying to drive conflict, and it is not clear what the legal basis is for that.
I think a few batons over the head of anarchists is a good thing, and might put a few more coming onto the streets.
We're your judge, jury and executioner, Adam.
Well, if you've got a mask on...
That would be.
So you're right that it's very rare for the National Guard to be brought in when the governor has not agreed to it. I think that's probably just because in most cases where you've got chaos on the streets and violence, the governor would probably agree. Now, Trump has used a law that says if there is a rebellion against the authority of the United States government, you are allowed to bring in the National Guard. I agree that they should only be taking action against people who are genuinely being violent, and it's very important that they don't cross the line into taking action against people who are exercising their right to free speech and just holding up a placard. But I think he has made sure that he's used a power that he is able to employ here. And I think it's quite frankly really embarrassing that Gavin Newsom has said that it's cruel to arrest 120 people and doesn't want the National Guard to be brought in and to have law and order in California. He's not in favour of keeping Californians safe. He's not in favour of keeping them safe from random criminals coming across the border. And then look what happened with the fires last year.
Look, Newsom has also said that there is no deficit in local forces to enforce the law, but Trump has deliberately chosen to bring in the National Guard for the first time in 60 years against the wishes of the local governor. And I think that's
it's a statement. It's a deterrent. If you want to go running around the streets of America with a balaclava on, covering your face, all dressed in black, you deserve a baton over the head, in my opinion.
Adam, would you like to see... do you ever envision a UK government behaving like this in the future? Mass deportations, getting tough, kicking doors down? getting rid of people who shouldn't be here?
No,
criminals?
not
You don't?
in the next few years. Reform will be a next step to change.
I mean, even Reform have been accused of being a bit lacklustre. on that.
They will be
Nigel
better.
Farage is explicit. He's not in favour of mass deportations.
Well, he's not
Because
going to have.
there
He's
needs
not
to be a
going to.
legal
He's not going to
process.
have a choice in a few years' time because things are going to get so bad under this government. But one thing I do fear is that, you know, if we brought in our sort of heavies, our National Guard, that it would be used against people on the right and not on the left. That's what happens in this country. The big dogs don't come out when the left riot and they cover their faces. It's just normal plod. But if someone like Tommy Robinson goes up London, suddenly it's the biggest coppers with the biggest batons.
There's a definition of paranoia, and I think I'm seeing it before me.
It's two-tier policing, Bill. It's evident.
There's not two-tier
It's
policing in this
my
country.
God.
It's evident, Bill.
Do you think it is, Chloe?
Of course there's two-tier policing in this country. I mean, it's bonkers that you've got the police, for example, going and knocking on the door of a pensioner who puts up a sticker saying that men shouldn't be in women's bathrooms. But then, yeah, as you say, people like Antifa and whatnot, they can get up to whatever they want. You can have people chanting in favour of Hamas on the streets.
And if you're black, you're 5 times more likely to be arrested with force than if you're white in this country.
Well, why is that? Does anyone know?
Well, in London, Bill,
It's not backed
in
up.
London, Bill,
Crime.
if you're black,
gangs.
you're 62% more likely to stab someone than someone that's white, and the stats back that up. So
it's like
horses
people
for courses.
Sadiq Khan who think that stop and search is racist because more black people happen to be stopped. Yeah, they also have to be way more likely to be carrying a knife.
Okay.
I don't think the stats back that. But
They do 100% back that up, Bill.
Okay, if you're watching on television and you've seen any, you have to be very eagle-eyed to see this, but if you've seen any graffiti on the walls of LA there, which may have upset you, I'm sure it wouldn't have, but if you did, apologies for that.